Whichever course exam candidates are taking in the Northern Examining Association drama syllabus, A or B, it is worth understanding some of the non-performance elements the board will be looking for in assessing their work. This video will be covering set design, makeup, costume, sound effects, lighting and properties. To help you understand some of the requirements, we took a look at some recent work provided by students at two centres, in Birkenhead and Stafford. The first was at St Dominic's School in Brood, Stafford, where Mr Bill Graves, the chief moderator for the Northern Examining Association, had a look at some of their set designs.
Two examples of set design now, the first from Two Leaves and a Stalk by David Campton, and the second from Pride and Prejudice. But what we'd like to do really is to concentrate on two contrasting sets by Stephanie, the first of them from Twelfth Night and the second Look Back in Anger. We'd like Stephanie to tell us as much as she can about both of these. Also, of course, if you could speak to us about the ground plans, remembering that there are 5 marks in the GCSE exam for each of your ground plans. Stephanie.
The ground plan is really the first thing you have to do. Without a ground plan, it is very difficult to build a set. It is a scaled diagram of the stage you are going to produce your play on, and the model is also scaled on to the ground plan. The model was created at home, and it is just basically wood covered in tissue paper, which is all it is wrinkled up to give it the depth. On a stage, this would be produced by flats, which would be covered in a cheap canvas, which would be dipped in size and paint, so just to give the effect of the depth.
Did you have a particular stage area in mind?
There's a Wolfram stage in Wolverhampton, which is what I based on it. The stage has to have height because of the 2 levels.
And the Look Back in Anger set?
This was a more difficult set in a way, but also a lot easier. In the book, in the play itself, the author has specified what he wants, and probably the most difficult thing with this set was the walls and the ceiling. It specifies in the play that it's a damp-looking room. This dampness effect is created in the paintwork with a stippling brush.
The stage might be said to appear cluttered. Would that give any problem for movement?
Not really. The stage is cluttered. I mean, it specifies that in the play to give it just gives an atmosphere to the play, but most of the acting is towards the front of the stage.
Makeup is a favourite of a great many students. Candidates must demonstrate its use for at least 5 different characters.
Kay, could you tell us what you hope to achieve today?
I'm trying to create the character of Bridie from We Three, who is a very colourful and flamboyant witch. And I'm going to apply the base and put the highlights on the top of the cheeks and shadows beneath the cheekbones and things like that.
Right, well, if you could carry on with that, and hopefully we'll see you later on. Kay, looking different now. Could you tell us what you've done to your lips, Kay, and also your eyes, and why?
Well, I've painted the lips blue to make the face look more inhuman, and I've also raised the eyebrows, and this makes the face more supernatural. And I've left plenty of room there between the eyes and the eyebrows to put some extravagant makeup on, which I thought that Bridie would use.
So now you're going to try and make yourself look even more abnormal and inhuman, are you?
Yes, I'm going to put some wrinkles on to be older.
And your hair, maybe?
Yes, I'm going to do something to my hair.
Right, we'll see you later on. All candidates, of course, have to complete 5 makeups, only one of which needs to be done in the presence of the moderator. So perhaps we can now move over and have a look at the work of Jane, who has in fact just about completed a makeup for a different character, and we'll ask Jane if she could tell us about the character that she's made up and how she's managed to do it. Jane.
Well, I decided to do the Snow Queen from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. And she's got a mean, gaunt-looking face. And so I decided to do a white face, which would give her a marble-like effect. And to give her a mean look, I deleted my own eyebrows and put some other eyebrows on top to give this mean, nasty look. And then I put dark lipstick.
Would you leave the hair the same way it is now?
Well, no, if I had long hair, I'd have it all coming down onto my face a little bit. And a blue crown to give her an icy look.
Right, we now return to Kay to have a look at her finished version. Right, Kay, now in completion, could you tell us what you've done to your hair in order to finish the character off?
Well, I sprayed it red and blue to join in with the rest of the face, which is also very colourful.
Right, I have here details of the designs for your other 4 makeup characters. First of them, the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. Could you tell me about that one?
Well, this was a very interesting one actually, because I didn't just use makeup for the effects. I put mud on the face, and as well as the foundation, and I put corn for eyebrows, and I used straw for hair. And so it wasn't just the conventional makeup, it was a lot of other things as well.
Right, we also have the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland and the character of Pierrot, and finally, as a contrast perhaps, Mrs. Danvers from the play Rebecca. Could you tell us about Mrs. Danvers?
Mrs. Danvers was one of the easiest ones I did, because it was just a conventional old person, although I had to try and make her look wicked. And it was just wrinkles, which I did with lake and highlighted with white with a small brush.
Right, and one final question for you. Why use stage makeup at all?
To combat the lights in the theatre, because the lights tend to wash out your features.
Properties, both the design and construction of, require a great deal of innovation and imagination.
For properties, candidates must design 5 properties from the same play, as Michelle will now explain.
These 5 properties were taken from the play Camino Real by Tennessee Williams. Here can be seen rocks which would be on the front of the plaza. Here is a loudspeaker which would be on the balcony at the back of the stage. This is a rope which would be on the balcony next to the loudspeaker. The parasol here, Marguerite would carry on. It's made out of simple welding rods and a silk material. The bar is metal and material wrapped around. Here is a belt. The material represents rubies and emeralds. It's a simple leather belt, and the material can push through the knots.
Could you tell me then, Michelle, about the costing for these items and also the costing for all the properties in the play?
The costing for these items is about £5, the most expensive being the material for the parasol. Most of the materials is found at home as a cardboard box and paper. For the whole of the properties, the costing will be fairly cheap, as most of them are available from home.
And as you know, you also need for the examination of properties plot. Can you tell me what you had in your properties plot?
Well, the properties plot is a list of properties necessary, and also the times when these properties are needed and where they will be placed on stage.
A property is defined as any movable object which may be used on the set of a stage. Properties can include, for instance, chairs, trees, and even carpets. Masts may also be included. We would now like to ask Simon if he could show us 3 examples of miscellaneous properties which could perhaps be used for the examination.
This decorative ornament was made for the play Antony and Cleopatra. It's a bust of Caesar and was made out of simple modelling clay. This umbrella or parasol was made for the importance of being earnest and could be used either as a costume accessory or in fact a prop. This travelling case was made for the play A Taste of Honey and while it looks simple and quite flimsy, it has lasted well over a year already.
Lighting can be a rewarding subject, and it can be quite complex, but it does allow the candidate a considerable amount of flexibility in their approach.
Unfortunately, neither of the centres which we visited had candidates who were offering lighting as an option. However, we would remind centres who are so involved that all candidates offering lighting must produce a cue sheet for 5 marks, a lighting plot for 5 marks, and also be able to demonstrate lighting techniques using the resources which are available to the centre, whatever those resources might be.
Costume design, both the making and designing of, appeals to a lot of candidates. Both schools had some good examples for us to take a look at.
Here we have a demonstration of costume design for one of the witches in Macbeth. Anna is very clearly demonstrating that the costume can in fact be worn, which is one of the essential elements of the syllabus. It is obviously theatrically effective. It could be worn in an acting area. So if we could ask Rachel now if she could explain to us about the 4 costume designs, because 4 costumes have to be designed and 1 has to be produced and worn in an acting area.
Well, this costume design of the witch was the first costume design, but with the sequins on, we thought it was too elaborate for the witch's costume. So we went on to this one, which was the final development, much more suitable to the witch. And then on to Lady Macbeth, which was another one of the costume designs. Macbeth, and also the porter. Also in the working notebook, we must have clear diagrams to show what exactly we need for the character. Here the leather boots. The binding on the legs, which is in character with Macbeth, must always be shown in the working notebooks. The cloak, which, as you can see, is done in the final drawing. Here, clearly labelled out of what sort of material the cloak will be made of. The long headdress with the braided headband. And here, the embroidered cuffs and also the waistband, all clearly shown in the working notebooks.
And similarly, if we could ask Rebecca, who is here dressed as Mrs. Bennet, if she could tell us about the costumes from Pride and Prejudice.
Well, as you just said, I'm wearing the costume from Mrs. Bennet. The costume was also designed for Elizabeth Bennet, Mr. Darcy, and Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Because Pride and Prejudice is set in the 19th century, it's very important that the details are very accurate. So research went into details like the shoes and the mock cap, which I'm wearing.
Right, if we could now then have a look at some further costumes in Birkenhead. A successful example of costume design is this designed by Eileen for the character of Gwendolen in The Importance of Being Earnest. Here it is important to note the attention to details, with accessories adding to the effect. The costume, as indicated in the syllabus, should be seen under the effect of stage lights.
Finally, there is the subject of sound effects, live and recorded. A little more difficult to deal with in a video, but a student at Stafford completed a successful topic, and this is how it was achieved.
This is Rebecca, together with her sound equipment. Could you tell us, Rebecca, about the presentation of your sound tape?
Yes, I made the sound tape to add atmosphere to a production of Murder in the Cathedral by our drama group.
And the editing process and cueing methods that you used?
Well, first of all, I watched a full rehearsal of the play and timed certain parts of the play into which I was going to add the cues. And then I went away and recorded the cues and added 30 seconds onto each cue, so that should the play overrun, I still had enough sound left. Using a four-track tape recorder, I was able to record more than one sound onto the tape and fade each one in and out as I wanted it.
Could you tell us about the remainder of your equipment?
Yes, I have a mixing desk
with 3 channels connected to the tape recorder and 1 channel connected to the keyboard, in which there are several preset sounds.
Could you explain the use of your cue sheet?
Yes. I used an exercise book and a double page. On one page I put a sheet of the play, and on the other page 4 columns showing the equipment, cue, effect and the counter number.
And finally, could I ask you to demonstrate some of your sound effects? Perhaps 1 recorded and 3 live?
Yes, that's fine. This is the Albinoni, which I used for the beginning of Murder in the Cathedral. And off the keyboard, I used effects such as the chiming bell, I used the thunder to signify Thomas Becket being dead. And also, several times during the play, I used the wind.
Centres may need reminding at this stage that, of course, such sophisticated apparatus and equipment is not essential. We would, however, recommend as a minimum requirement that centres did make available a tape recorder, loudspeaker and amplifier.
Obviously, there are many other ways to cover the topics you have just seen, but we hope that these few examples will serve as a useful guideline for candidates to achieve high marks. Further information can be obtained by writing to the following addresses: Associated Lancashire Schools Examining Board, 12 Harter Street, Manchester M1 6HL. Joint Matriculation Board, Manchester M15 6EU. North Regional Examinations Board, Wheatfield Road, Westerhope, Newcastle upon Tyne, NE5 5JZ. North West Regional Examinations Board, Orbit House, Albert Street, Eccles, Manchester, M30 OWL. Yorks and Humberside Regional Examinations Board, Harrogate Office, 31 to 33 Springfield Avenue, Harrogate, HG1 2HW. Yorks and Humberside Regional Examinations Board, Sheffield Office, Scarsdale House, 136 Derbyshire Lane, Sheffield, S8 8SE.